The Breen have experienced unrest since the death of their emperor. You haven't lived until you tried Jet Reno's 7 of Limes, and Maul loves Locke because of their differences, not despite them. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek Discovery, Season 5, Episode 7. 4 episodes left. Can you believe it? Erigah, written by M. Raven Metzner, directed by John Dudkowski, maybe Dudkowski, hopefully. That'd be cool, too. We've got a very special guest today, everybody. Finally, we got him, Locke the Breen himself, Elias Toufexis. How are you today, Elias?
What's up, boys and girls? How are you? Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So good to have you.
Oh, yeah. It is a pleasure.
I'm happy to be here. I'm a fan of your podcast. I'm a fan of your work as an actor, and because I'm really a giant Deep Space Nine fan, like a huge nerdy Deep Space Nine fan.
That's so cool. That was going to be my first question.
Cool.
Let's get into that. So
here's the thing, man. So I'll tell you something very quick. Yeah, I'll tell you something very quickly. This will explain it all, kind of encapsulate it all. There's a scene in episode 1 of the called Red Directive of Discovery this season, where Locke pulls out all this stuff from a bag he wants to sell to the synth, right? Mm-hmm. And I get the props, and I'm like, "Hey, is that a self-sealing stem bolt?" Like, how did you know what that is? I'm like, "It's a self-sealing stem bolt. I know what a self-sealing stem bolt is. That's a tricord." And it's funny because I think Tunde, the showrunner, one of the showrunners and the director of that episode, he's like, "You're the first actor who knows every prop in every scene what we're doing." I'm that much of a nerd. That's the way to do it. And Eve, who plays Maul, Eve Harlow, wonderful in the whole thing. She knows nothing about Star Trek, like nothing at all, zero knowledge. So it was so much fun because every time we would bump into like, "Oh, the chase. All right, I'm gonna tell you everything about you need to know about the episode The Chase, and I'm gonna send you YouTube videos about exactly what you have to watch. You don't have to watch the whole thing. Maybe you should watch this episode. Maybe you should." Okay, the Breen. All right, they showed up in TNG, but they really took hold in Deep Space Nine. Let me explain to you, like all that kind of stuff. So I am a big Star Trek geek or nerd, whatever you want to call us. And it was crazy, man. Like, imagine being a nerd like that, and then, or anything you guys nerd out about, and then getting like a major role on something like that, and showing up on the ISS Enterprise. I'm like, dude, this is ridiculous. I'll text my friends, and they'll be like, "Could you take a step back and realize how ridiculous it is that you're doing this?" Yeah, I know, man. It's pretty crazy. I used to shoot Star Trek shows in the basement of my friend's house. Nice. You know, I have pictures of me on a cardboard captain's chair. And now I can juxtapose it with pictures of me on the actual.
There was a tweet about that. Didn't you tweet that about a week ago? I should find it.
And then I put a picture of me sitting on the bridge of the Enterprise that I snuck into because I didn't get to shoot on the bridge. I just shot in sickbay mostly. But I went to the bridge and I'm like, I'm gonna take a picture on the captain's chair. With all due respect to him.
So you're always sneaking on the places in Star Trek, even in the new stuff.
Yeah, I'll try my best, man. I want to see all the. I was climbing in the Jeffries tube, and they're like, "No, get out of there." No, it's.
So did you know when you were auditioning for this part that it was number 1 Star Trek and number 2 that you were going to play a Breen?
It was in steps. So it was an interesting process because I was actually on Discovery in the 3rd episode overall. I played. I don't know if you remember, but. Michael gets shuttlecrafted to the Discovery with a bunch of prisoners.
Sure.
And then she gets in a fight when one of them tries to escape. I was the one that tried to escape, and she got in a fight with. Wow. And I got that role because I was living
first season.
Yeah, I was living in Toronto at the time. Giant Star Trek fan, and I heard their show was coming to town, and I freaked out. And I called my agent. I'm like, "You got to get me on the show." And here's where, as an actor, this is going to tick you off a bit, because what ended up happening was, at that point in my career, I had started really doing only guest stars and above, right? That was what I was like. My limit was guest stars and above or good recurrings, or I'm trying to build a career, right? Mm-hmm. And I get this audition for Star Trek, freaking out, and it says guest star. I'm super excited. The lines that you have to memorize for the audition were not Star Trek. but they were like random, whatever. Somebody had written them, maybe the casting had written them. Got the role, was so excited, was so happy, guest starring on Star Trek. And to me, guest star is like whatever the episode is about, right? Like Q was the guest star of the week, things like that. Like I get the script sent to me after like 30 security steps, and I'm only in the first like 7 pages. And I'm looking at it going, this is not a guest star. This is barely a co-star. And I call my agent, like, you're going to burn me on this show forever because you can't really play more than one character, despite Star Trek's history. You can't really play more than one character on the show because it's a continuing story. So I'm like,
and you're a human in this character, right? This character is human.
You're just a human.
Okay.
So I'm like, I'm never going to be able to do the show again. You can't, I got to get out of this. And after waiting for phone calls, basically casting, and my agent was like, please don't quit. Like, we just got this show. It's brand new. And now you're going to cause problems by the 3rd episode. They're already like setting up your sizes and stuff for wardrobe. It's like, fine. And then by the time I got to set, it had been cut down more. And then by the time I was doing ADR for it, it had been cut down more. So
now you're just a background actor.
I really had like 3 lines in the whole episode. And I was so mad. I didn't watch the show for 2 years. I was like, I can't. I'm so pissed off at this show. Like, I'm just gonna be jealous. I'm going to watch all this stuff that I could have played that I'm never going to. It's very petty, but that's what actors are. But that's how I felt. And then I just had heard about the jump to the future in the show. And I'm like, okay, I have to check it out. And then I started really getting into it. But that was my story then. So then when I moved down to LA about 5 years ago, I called the casting director, Orly Sidowitz, and I said, look, I know I was on Star Trek before, but I really love it. And now you got Strange New Worlds and you got Picard and there's still Discovery. If there's ever anything I can play, I'll do the prosthetic, whatever, just let me know. She says, absolutely, we love you. How many times do casting directors say that? Like, all the time. 5 years later, literally 5 years after that phone call, I get a call going, we have a part we want you to play. No audition.
Wow.
No, like, we want you to play. So it's a little bit of misnomer. I did have to convince the producers, but I didn't go through an audition process. Like, they called me, Orly and Lisa Parison, whom I love, is the Toronto casting director. They called and they said, we want you to play this role. We just have to convince the producers, can you put something on tape? And so I didn't go through an actual audition process. I did put something on tape, produced for the producers. And like a week later, they're like, yeah, you're going to play this character. And I was like, great. Okay. What is it? I'm assuming it's under prosthetic because I've already been on the show. I said, yeah, go down. I think it was like North Hollywood. They're going to do the whole plaster thing. And then they're going to show you a visualization of some concept art rather of what your character is. And I get there, and this is God's honest truth. I'm about to go through this whole process. I'm already panicking because nobody likes doing that stupid process of putting cast all over your face, and having to sit there and try not to panic for 40 minutes or whatever it is. But I said, show me some concept art, and they showed me, and it was just, it was a little different from what it ended up being, but it was lack more or less. And I said, what is he? What alien is he? Or what, not real alien, but what creature is he? What race is he? And they said he's a Breen. And I literally went, Breen don't take their helmets off. That was what I said. Breen don't take. And then it really sunk in because what I realized was I'm going to make history.
You're the reveal.
That's what I realized in that moment, looking at that picture and saying Breens don't take their helmet off. And I was like, unless I missed something in like Prodigy or like Lower Decks or something.
You're the first Breen we've seen.
Hey.
Exactly. So when that happened, man, I was like, holy shit, I'm making Star Trek history. And that's when it really hit me. And I also, at that point, I didn't really know how long I was going to be on the show. I was told a recurring couple of episodes, maybe a little more. And when I got up there and they started doing, when I got up to Toronto to do makeup tests and stuff and wardrobe, and they started already putting me in with press stuff, I was like, oh, this is legit. This is like a legit, like large character. And I think it actually grew from where we were to where we ended up. I think they started adding stuff for us because everyone was liking what Mal and Locke were doing. So it grew even more to this, entire season of a character. Yeah, I couldn't be happier, man. But it was that journey. That was the whole journey.
Wow.
It's amazing.
So your dream came true, actually being featured in the Star Trek episode, right?
Yeah,
It just
and
took
it's
you a
funny,
while.
and it's funny how you do that, man. You get so depressed as an actor when things don't go your way, but you really are planting seeds that you don't know where they're gonna spring up. And every now and again, it happens, man.
Here's that tweet, by the
Yeah.
way, from Elias
Yeah.
Toufexis at Elias Toufexis.
Oh, wow.
Here you are as a 15-year-old on a quote
Yeah.
pretend enterprise filming a pretend Star Trek show in my friend's basement. And there
It
you
does have a
are.
captain's hat on, you know,
Yeah.
so
It was kind of a comedy version of it, but see the little
Amazing.
yeah.
the little cardboard. They're all like
And if you got your hand
crayon
down in the
drawings on it. Yeah.
proper captain position,
Yeah.
flat.
Yeah, that was me at 15, man. And then there's me many years
Oh,
later
wow.
sitting on the actual Enterprise. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, you killed this role,
Oh,
Elias.
thanks,
I
man.
want to say, yeah, you've been really knocking it out of the park, and the ability that you have to convey so much emotions and expressions through the makeup, I think is
It was hard.
exceptional. And
Hmm.
I don't
Thank
know,
you.
did you get any Doug Jones tips on that? Or
Doug
how
was the
were you
first
able to pull
person I've
that off?
called. I've known Doug for a while. I don't even know how I knew him. I was on that first episode, first season, but we didn't have any work together. But I think just because he's such a good and open guy, he's such a great guy that I think we had talked on social media or something years ago. And then I saw him at Comic-Cons and things since then. But I reached out to him immediately when I got the role. And his advice was patience, like really patience. That's what you need to go through this process. He was speaking more of the process than the performance. But here's the thing that I found, like actors will appreciate this. Like the way I like to be as an actor is as naturalistic as possible, as realistic as possible. And it just wasn't playing. That first day, and especially in that fifth episode where you have to show all that emotion out, that emotion has to come out.
Yeah.
My first takes were all way too subtle.
Hmm.
Apparently, I had not seen them, but the note I would get over and over again is bigger, bigger. You gotta be bigger. And I remember making a deal with Tunde and the director of episode 5, Jen McGowan. I remember saying to them, "I will do what you want as long as you promise me that you're not going to let me go melodramatic. Like I'll push it, but I'm scared of being a soap opera now. Like the way you're
This
asking
is
me to
during
do
the
is
love story scenes, right, with you and
particularly then, but even in that first episode, there were some moments of that.
Okay.
But particularly in that fifth episode, the love story stuff, I was like, I could be, if this wasn't on me, what you're asking me to do is like soap opera acting, right? And it's really not my thing. It's really not my wheelhouse. Really uncomfortable to go that far. And so I was pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And she promised me, Jen in particular, the director, she promised me, I'm not going to let you go melodramatic. And if you do, I'm not going to use those takes, I promise. And to her word, like I think it was a little big still, but
Well,
that's
what
just
did you
me.
mean? What is big for you? Like what is more or
Like I
big?
could give you a direct example. I'll give you a direct
Yeah.
example. Like remember when he says, trying to remember the line specifically, but he says like, where would I go? When she says, come, why do you stay here? Like, why do you stay here? You hate it. And Locke says, where would I go? If it was just me, I would literally just say like, where would I go? Like completely, but I had to be like, where would I go? You know what I mean? Like I had to like turn like, where would I go? Like I'd have to do like that kind of thing. And it was so uncomfortable. I did it much better than I just did it here, but it was so uncomfortable to be that big. And I was genuinely worried about it up until whenever that episode aired 2 weeks ago. I was genuinely like, I'm going to come across
Yeah,
it.
I don't feel big in any of your performances right
And
now
it was
so far.
all because of them, because they either chose the right takes or they were completely right about guiding me in the right direction. And again, it just goes to show as an actor, trust, if you got good people and you can trust them, they won't let you down. And Discovery's full of good people. So I knew that they wouldn't let me down. And I was really happy with pretty much everything we did in that episode in particular. And now 7 too. I'm really happy with I mean, I'm not happy with the outcomes.
Well, in general, the chemistry you have with Eve Harlow. Now, did you guys meet before this, or had you worked together at all prior to this?
We did not meet before, but we knew of each other because we're both from Canada. We both live in LA, of course, but we're from Canada. She's from Russia, but she grew up in Canada. And so we had known each other, like we had done the same shows at the same time, but never together, those type of things. But I knew who she was. And when Michelle Paradise, when I first had a conversation with her, she said, yeah, we cast your Maul and it's Eve Harlow. And I'm like, oh, I know. Do I know her or do I know of her? And I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
So we talked on the phone. A quick funny story is when I called her the first time we had this conversation, we were getting along like right away. And I said, so what is your makeup process like? I had completely assumed that Maul would be also this other, yeah. And she's like, no, I'm not wearing anything. I'm like, what? And she goes, no, I'm not wearing
I got
anything.
eyeshadow, heavy eyeshadow. That's about it.
Like, that's not fair. She said a great thing though. She said, now you're going to know what it's like to have to wake up super early to put makeup on for 3 hours. Because normally I show up 10 minutes before I have to go. I'm like, yeah, I'm good, whatever. You're not hiring me for the prettiness. But Locke took a long friggin' time. And Eve, the reason I don't know why we have chemistry outside of work. We hung out a good amount, but I'm like 10 years older than her. So here's a weird thing that I'm just thinking of as I'm saying it. I'm 10 years older than her. Outside of work, I felt like a big brother, little sister relationship. But the second I saw her as Maul, it was very easy to like feel actual like, oh, I love this woman. And it was just as Maul for some reason. She's so beautiful and she performs it so well and elegantly, and we have like a great chemistry together. So I'm like, oh, it's great. I actually love Maul. And then when I see her outside of work, I'm like, hey, little buddy. It's like a completely different mentality. Even when I watch the show, I'm like, oh man, I still have a crush on Maul. I have a total crush on Maul. And then I'll call Eve. I'm like, hey, what's up, dude? Very, very interesting thing.
I love the chemistry. I love the performances. And like I said, there's certain element of what you do that shines through. For me, I've gotten serious vibes of high level vibes of people who have wore prosthetics and played kind of these characters. Outside of Star Trek, I'm going to mention some of the people that I think of when I watch you. Ron Perlman as Hellboy.
Nice.
There's moments where I feel that.
Right, coming through. Thanks.
Michael Chiklis. Shout out to Michael Chiklis.
Here's the crazy thing. Michael Chiklis was at my hotel when I was doing Star Trek. So every day I would leave and I'd be like, Michael, advice on dealing with the makeup. And he'd sit there with a cigar and he'd just be telling me, he's like, all right, I had all these panic attacks. And I'm like, okay, that's not helpful, but anything else? He's like, yeah. And, the funniest thing he said, he's like, what do you have to put it on? He has a big cigar. He's like, what are you putting on? How far? I'm like, it goes to about here. And then I have to do my hands. He's like, oh, fuck you. I had to do a whole thing. I do the whole body. Yeah, that's so funny that you brought him up because that's every other day I'd see him. I'm like, I'm going to get in the makeup, man, and he'd be like, good luck. He was doing there's a detective show that shot there at the same time that he was directing. Yeah,
wow, interesting. Well, speaking of which, you mentioned right before we were recording, because everybody at home, this is a hulking man here, Elias Toufexis is. How did you tell us about getting in shape for this role?
So here's an interesting thing about I've always been pretty gym go-y, for lack of a real word.
That's perfect.
Thanks. But during COVID, like we all were just like, oh, whatever, I'll get around to it. Or he couldn't go to the actual gym. I like an actual gym, and I couldn't go to the actual gym. Everybody gained weight and all that stuff. And I remember getting this is all leading somewhere, but I remember getting an episode of FBI with the bad guy in an FBI episode. And I gave my sizes. And then when I got there, like, you are none of these things. All the sizes that you gave me, you're like 2 inches bigger than all of these sizes. I'm like, oh shit, because I had gained all this like massive weight. So I went back to the gym and I was really, I don't know if you do this, Rock, but like when I'm gonna go on camera, I I like cut down on carbs and I cut down on like I drink a lot of water and try to mind the salt, and so I lean up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I first did the tests for and I go to the gym a lot. When I first did the test for lac, I came to this realization that I don't have to do that. I'm covered. I'm not taking my shirt off ever. I'm covered from head to toe. I don't have to think about being
Yeah.
lean on camera. I can just eat whatever the hell I want as long as I keep lifting, so I maintain the
Bulk.
the bulk of because he has to look kind of hulking.
Yeah.
As long as I have that, I don't need to. And it's great, and it worked out great. It was 4 months of like absolute pleasure because I like working out anyway. But then I realized I was watching. I shouldn't say this because now people are going to look for it. But I was watching myself in the Breen uniform, and I'm like, Laz, you got a bit of a gut there, man. Like that gut showed up. But maybe you should have been paying attention to what you were eating there. Yes, you're big and you're bulky, and that's exactly what you're supposed to do. But you kind of like you don't do this anymore. You kind of do that. Maybe I'm the only one who notices it, but it was like a lot of gym, a lot of working out, and not really not caring what I eat. I'm always gonna eat healthy, but not caring about macros like carbs and all that stuff. I'm like, whatever, bagels, just give me. I just need food. And then once it was over, I went back to counting stupid calories and carbs and macros. Stupid life.
Well, you were eating that Green Royal diet,
which
comes heavy. Extra portion on that.
Yeah.
I have a question because you mentioned a little bit about how this character will be received.
Mm.
And in the beginning, in typical Star Trek fashion, they give us somebody that you don't, you might root against, but then there's moments where you're like, I like this. There's something I like about this guy, right? And it could go all the way where you just turn eventually and say, I don't like him at all. Or at the end, you can have a redemption story. And it looks like Locke is kind of leaning towards a redemptive story in this episode when they talked about, when he's kind of denounces his family ancestry and, the rogue path that he's taken to follow love and what that kind of entails as far as the hit that's put out on him. So all of these things kind of show that even though this is the villain, this is also somebody who is complex, and we can find moments where we relate to or cheer for this character. How do you feel Locke will be received by the audience?
Well, that's the hope, right? When we were doing it, the hope was that first of all, empathy. Like we want empathy for what they're going through. They do terrible things, granted, but they're not. I get a lot of when they first showed up in the first episode, there was a lot of like, oh, it's Bonnie and Clyde. I'm like, okay, but Bonnie and Clyde like killed people and robbed banks. They weren't really doing it for. It's Mickey and Mallory from Natural Born Killers.
Natural Born Killers.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not them because they're not psycho murderers. These people they're just doing. Honest to God, if everybody left them alone, they would be completely happy and they wouldn't mess with anybody. They just want freedom and they want to be together. So that was easy to play, and I hope that the empathy that the characters draw or the characters draw out of the audience is like one of understanding that they're doing these terrible things, but they're doing it just to be together. I'm not saying I justify what they're doing, when they kill people with poison and stuff. They just don't care. They just want that freedom. If the Federation left them alone, they'd be fine. If the Brain left them alone, they'd be fine. But you see it in episode 5 when Michael's actually saying, like, look, we have an option for you. You come with us, do your time, and then we'll let you go, or you can be free. And you see Locke go, all right, well, if we did their time, like, would we do it together? And maybe that's an option. I don't know if that Maul would have been as easy to convince, but I think Locke just knows how big an Erigah is, and he's like, if I can get out of this.
He was thinking about like getting out of that situation, out of being on the run and constantly,
Yeah, he hates it. And one thing I only just realized because I rewatched Red Directive and I don't think I realized it when I first read the script is Rayner says these guys I've been on my radar for 2 years. So that means they've been running from the Breen for 2 years. I'm sure I remembered it when we were shooting, but I got refreshed in my memory. 2 years they've been running. So they just want to stop running. And
Well, and the
they
other
do bad
thing,
things to get it.
they do bad things, but as a result of whatever circumstances, they're kind of forced to. Like, there's almost like certain amount of options you're left with, and you're like, I got to get out of this.
Yeah.
And to me, one of the best parallels that was made in the last episode, I think it was in 505, was the kind of contrast or juxtaposition between Book and Burnham and Maul and Locke. I think that scene where you guys were both caught up inside of the infirmary, and and you both were arguing or defending the person you love, right?
Yeah.
It made it clear that we're watching some of the same things. Book was a mercenary type of, freelance, whatever he was. And so they found love together. And here
Michael,
in this
Michael was a mutineer.
Right. And so there, you saw the similarities there. The comparisons made sense for me. I love the way that the writing of that particular episode had you guys kind of forced together in the room and realizing, hey, we're kind of doing the same thing here.
Yeah.
Let's figure this out. So
in fact, the episode originally was titled on script, it was titled Green Eye. That was the name of the episode. Based on what Maul calls Lack all the time. She calls him Green Eye. But Mirrors is a better title. It's a more apt title for exactly the reason you're saying. That's why they changed it to Mirrors.
Yeah.
So
and
Elias,
I also came.
Sorry, go ahead, Cirroc.
No, just really quickly. I did write down Bonnie and Clyde in my notes here, but then I wanted to put a switch on it or a twist, and so I put Breeny and Cleve.
Oh, Cirroc, you don't understand the Breen parts. One of the things we did on set was all of us would just sing songs, but change anything that rhymed with Breen. So it was like Sweet Breen are made of these.
Oh yes,
Green Age Wasteland. We were just singing all these things, and or like I sent a poster that I put of Field of Dreams, but I put a bunch of Breen behind Kevin Costner. I put Field of Breen.
Nice.
And it was all day for a week. It was just doing Breen songs.
And Ryan listens to Breen Day, right?
Hey, there we go. Berkeley's own. So Elias, we only have you for another minute or two here, and we really appreciate you taking the time, by the way, but I've got to know, you put a lot into this. You're a big Star Trek fan. You're a phenomenal actor. What are you most proud of for season 5 of Star Trek Discovery and your performance?
That's a good question. You know what? I think there's an answer to that, but it's coming. And what I mean by that is I'm going to be proud. What I'm looking to put my pride into is how these characters are received, because that's what I put out there. Eve and I really were talking, and we just I just hope everybody likes these two. And it's always been these two also. It's never been just Lack for me. It's always been this couple. Like, if this couple is well received, if I'm going to these cons and I see cosplay and I have people coming up to me and saying like their love story really meant something to me and stuff, like that's what I'm going to take pride in if that happens. I'm very proud of the work. I'm very blessed to be on the show. I genuinely mean this when I say that it's the best set I've ever been on, and I'm an actor that's done a million TV shows on I go guest star to guest star to guest star, so I would do like a week or 2 weeks on a TV show over and over and over again. So I've done a ton of shows with a ton of different actors and crew members and showrunners, and it's the best set. Like, I spent a lot of time there particularly, but even by 2 weeks in, you're like, I don't want to work anywhere else. Like, these guys are all amazing. So I was proud to be on it just generally. And I've said this in every interview I've done. Sanique was the best #1 on a call sheet I've ever worked with. She's the fucking best, like really the best. And Doug, man, like Doug and I are friends now, and I love that guy. There's my alarm to go on your show.
And now it's your alarm.
I was an hour
off the show, I guess.
Yeah.
But Elias, this has been so cool.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you. We're really happy for you that at 15 you were playing Star Trek, And now you are a huge part of Star Trek lore. I think the fans are going to take to you and Eve very strongly, and it's well-deserved. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much for your talents, and we really appreciate you, man.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys. I'll see you guys around, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. Looking forward to seeing how the season kind of closes out, where the storyline goes. They left us with some teasers at the end when they mentioned some of the things, that are in the realm of possibilities with this device they're looking for. So I'm excited to find out what's going to happen. Definitely love the love story. It feels real. And it's not an easy thing to do to make the audience believe that two people are in love and willing to do anything for each other. And I think that you definitely conveyed that.
Oh, thanks, man. That's good to hear.
Regardless of whether you think it's toxic or not, it definitely is exciting to watch. And I love it. I've been loving it, and I'm glad you were able to make history too. Congratulations on really being the first Breen we've seen. We have been waiting for this moment for many years now. So thanks for doing that.
We share that connection, man. Your show to my show.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
All right.
So yeah, man. Welcome to the Star Trek family, brother. Yeah.
Thank you.
When you said the first Breen we've ever seen, I felt like there was some kind of song in there we could have squeezed in, but my brain didn't work fast enough for it. But thanks very much. Everybody at home, in the comments below, make your favorite Breen song pun and let us know. There are going to be a lot of them. It's a good game to play. Thank you very much to Elias. Everybody stick around. We will be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
Wearing a cool Angels shirt, by the way. I'm still mad at the Angels for the rally monkey. I'll never forgive them for that. There's a story there, but I'll tell you off the air. Anyway, we are reviewing Star Trek Discovery Season 5, Episode 7. Here are the trivioids of the week. There is some evidence that the Breen are capable of somatic cell regeneration. Admiral Vance is having a refrigeration unit beamed over. Sounds nice. The Breen have experienced unrest since the death of their emperor. Commander Rayner knows the Romulan saying to never turn your back on a Breen. Remember that episode of Deep Space Nine where they were captured? And that was a great one of the best. The last time the Breen visited the Federation, they destroyed an entire city. Labyrinth of the Mind is the title of a Betazoid manuscript. You haven't lived until you tried Jet Reno's 7 of Limes. Jet Reno used to have tons of contacts in the book trade, and Maul loves Locke because of their differences, not despite them. That is such a good line. Maybe the best one.
I like 7 of Limes.
I actually rewound that. I was like, did I hear that right? Did she just say 7 of Limes? Because that's a good one. Yeah. Jet Reno steals every scene she's in. It's not fair to everybody else, but that's just what she does.
It's just, you just got to live with it.
So Elias,
if you're in a scene with Jet Reno, you're just setting her up for a punchline because she's ready to knock it out.
It's true.
That's pretty much it.
Elias Toufexis was just with us. He was amazing. Really appreciate him and his time. So glad we got him because there are only a few episodes left. So, and this was kind of the time to get him. If we got him next week, it wouldn't have, maybe.
And you know what? For those of you out there that were thinking, how long is it to get into that makeup? He told us it was 5 hours of worth of makeup. Especially when the hands are being seen as well, which was the case in this particular episode.
That's insane. It would have only been 45 minutes, but he always wanted those fake eyelashes. He insisted, apparently, is what he said. Off the air, he said that. No, but 5 hours is outrageous, but he looks amazing. And if he's the first Breen we're ever going to see, he's got to look perfect. And he did.
Yeah.
So a lot of fun stuff here. We got a non-appearance mention for Captain Saru. I do want to talk about Tarina here. President Tarina. I was really happy to see her in this episode without Saru. Not that Saru and Doug Jones aren't my favorite character and people in the world, respectively, but because I think it's great that Tarina is getting more of a character arc than just attached to one character, you know? She
Mhm.
can't just
Mhm.
be Saru and Tarina. It's great to see her doing other things and doing important things and being a part of the story more so than just in one connection, because sometimes that happens. And I thought she was amazing in this episode. Unbelievably good, possibly, just as good or better than her scenes with Saru, which are phenomenal. Very happy to see her. That's Tara Rosling. What do you think?
What is their couple name? What would their couple name be? Is it Serena or Tulu?
Ah, Serena. You really served that one, didn't you?
Oh, very good. All
Thanks.
right.
I don't know
All
if that was
right. A little
worth it, but I
comeback.
gave it a shot.
Came back. Little
Is that over
comeback.
the
All right.
line? I don't know.
We also got an Admiral Vance kind of cameo again in this episode.
Always great.
I don't know. I really like Admiral Vance. And I think he's a sympathetic character. He has that kind of air of, distinguished kind of veteran Starfleet. He's got that kind of feel to him, in my opinion.
What's
So I'm always happy
interesting?
to see him.
Yeah, you know what's
Yeah.
interesting about his performance? What's Oded Fair? Um, is that he delivers things in a way that I would not expect, or I would not have done or expected somebody to have done. And he forces me to kind of go like, oh, that's a strange way to deliver something. But then I watch it back again. I'm like, boy, that really works. And it's really interesting when an actor can give you a delivery that's different than the obvious, putting an emphasis, on a slightly different word, or sometimes he shows his teeth a little bit. He just little things, little mannerisms that he does really makes the character so much more interesting than just the lines themselves. So yeah, big kudos to Oded Fair for giving us something more to chew on when we're watching his performances.
Yeah, I totally, as soon as he comes on, I'm like, that's Admiral Vance. And there's no kind of like, I'm sold on his performance as that character. Like, it's believable. Also with Tarina as well. I liked her performance in this as well. She made some really kind of, like you meant, the detachment from Saru and having her own kind of legs to stand on, and her own storyline is very good as well. We talked about Eve Harlow. I think she deserves a lot of credit for being just so captivating and, working a lot in with what she's given. Because I feel this being torn in between decisions that she's having, where she's trying to find the way to do the right thing, but what she perceives to be the right thing, and she has her own logic for why things should be how they are. The tension between her and Book, I believe, is really real there, but there's also a subtle trust there where she's able to like reach out to Book and feel like maybe he's telling the truth. So I think there's a lot of subtle things she does in her performance, really all with the eyes. Another, just great job of hers for me. I think the camera loves her.
She is very much in the eyes. That's true.
Yeah.
She's got this kind of, hypnotic way of kind of
Yeah.
swaying into you, right? And what's interesting I thought it was a great choice to give her that connection to Book. It's great for both characters. She needs that bridge. Otherwise, she's just team Toufexis, which is a great team to be on. But if she's just team Locke, it's kind of one-dimensional as far as what her story is. But when they give her that bridge onto the other side in the name of Book, that gives her something more to work with, a lot more depth to her story. It also gives him something more in this seasonal arc. So I thought that was a really good choice. It works well. And we kind of feel it. We kind of see it, it kind of worked. And I hope we get to see a little bit more of it in the final 3 episodes. Who knows if we will, because now she's with the Breen. So who knows if that's the end of the Book and Maul show, but it would be nice to see one more final connection there.
I actually, yeah, I would like to see more in that. And I wanted to see a little bit more of this brain doctor that they were bringing on.
Yeah.
There was a part of me that was like, oh yeah, I'm about to get another doctor, and let's see what this brain doctor does, And I thought it was going to be like a whole a thing, but it wasn't. It wasn't as much of a thing as I thought it would be, because that character could have been just a nice little small subtle moment of insight into what a brain doctor, his logic, or what kind of medical things are in their kit. I'd like to know, what do they,
do
they use a tricorder, or what did they use, So that kind of stuff I was curious about, and I was kind of excited, like, oh, we're about to see some brain science going on here. And it didn't really materialize to the degree I wanted.
Maybe the kind of tools a brain doctor would have would be kind of, they would be like morphing, kind of like their face. Maybe they have technology that morphs or that changes, or maybe there's something there. But I doubt that we'll see that in the final few episodes. It would have been fun. And now we're going to forever
wonder. Or a stethoscope.
Wonder. It's just a stethoscope.
Maybe it's old school.
It was like, I've done all I can do. I don't know. He's breathing, but he's about to stop breathing. I don't know what else there is.
Open your mouth, say, ah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a bummer that Locke
those
is
brain
now
ship
dead.
are that big? Has that something that's always been like a canon, part of the canon? Are they
said
big?
that was the biggest and most powerful ship in the Breen fleet.
Okay.
Is what they said. I don't remember if that was part of the Deep Space Nine lore, if that was this, but it was really cool and impressive to see. When I saw it, I was like, wow, that is so cool. I want to see more of this ship, and I want to see it in battle. That was amazing.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. They call it the Dreadnought or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Buffalo Soldier. Dreadnought Rasta. There it is. I had to throw it out there.
Excellent. So, okay. So now we learned why Rayner hates the Breen. Okay. Or as I call him, Commander Naysayer. At this point, it's like he's just like, nope, won't work. Nope, that's not. Nope. Now, of course, we finally find out why he's like that. We get it, and it works. And there's this, he has these nice moments with Michael. But at some point, I'm like, come on, man. You're too grumpy, Rayner.
I'm beginning to rethink this #1 commission that you got.
Yeah. At first, we're like, this is great. Good job.
Yeah.
But now we're like, come on, Rayner, get with the program.
Seriously. Otherwise, bring Tilly up here. She's got a better demeanor when she's talking to people.
I'll stick with Rayner. Thanks very much. No, it's working great.
It's funny because in this episode, he kind of, they called him a xenophobic or something, or a xenophobe, because he has this, adamant thing against the Breen because of his own experiences with them. Yep. And it reminded me of, who was it on DS9? It was O'Brien that hated the Cardassians, right?
Yes, the Cardis, yeah. And he called them Cardassians. The Cardassians, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that it kind of reminded me of that, like, ongoing, deep-seated kind of like, I never trust these guys. I don't ever trust these guys.
That's a very good point.
So I had a little flashback of that in this.
Or like
episode.
Worf and the Romulans. Even a Romulan would not, Here was something that I thought was funny. Was Zora the Explorer, the computer, when Adira and Tilly ask Zora, hey, what's this or that or whatever? And Zora, the computer with backsass, says, I don't think that will be helpful. I was like, if my computer ever tells me, I don't think that command will be helpful, I'll be like, let me decide. Let me be the judge. If I Google something, I'm like, oh man, my toilet's broken. Let me Google a plumber. And my computer says, I don't think that'll be helpful. I'll be like, can I just Google it and figure out myself if that's going to, thank you. Thank you. Your job is to just show the list of names and phone numbers. Thank you.
I don't need all this sass from you. Turn the sass setting down.
Yes.
It's
yes.
Too high.
The highest sass I'll go is my GPS on my phone. I turn it to an Australian dude's voice. I'm like, that's just the right amount of sass that I want there. Where he's like, in the what they call it, instead of a parking lot, they call it a car park. Turn into the car park. I'm like, you edgy guy. You call it parking lot a car park. Anyway, yeah, that was funny for me.
It's a good 1,000 years into the future, they still have library cards. That's always a good thing to know.
Yeah.
I need one of those.
I will say, I really liked the Breen in this episode. Beyond just the ship, I liked seeing them all transport in. I liked that the doctor had this big, giant medical type symbol on him or her. I don't know, or they. I like that because I was noticing how all of their uniforms look the same, at least on initial inspection. And so I'm not a huge fan of everybody looking the same in different aliens because you see the Federation, there's red, there's white, there's green, there's blue, there's all these different things. And then when we run into the race of the week, the alien of the week, they all look the same. And so it was cool to see a little deviation, a little difference and with that big cool symbol. And you're like, ooh, that must be the medical symbol. That's really cool. So I enjoyed that. And I thought that their helmets, their uniforms all looked amazing. I was very happy with that.
I wasn't happy with how long it takes the translator to kick in because I get a few moments of and then it kicks in, and I'm like, "Whoa, hurry up with that translation, bro! I need to hear all that static first."
That's better than what we had to deal with before. With at least
I know
before we didn't know anything. It would, in fact, if I remember correctly, even with the subtitles on, when we were watching Deep Space Nine, it would just say like indistinct chatter in brain or something like that. It wouldn't even like tell you what they're saying. You would just have to wait for Weir to say, I disagree. I don't think that, or whatever he would do. And he would tell us what they said in his response. At least we're getting something.
Yeah. What did you think about the choreography with the fight scenes? I thought that was kind of done really well. Shout out to the director, John Dudkowski. I thought the choreography was done well with Maul and Non that fight scene. It looked well to me. It looked good. There were certain shots that were really kind of creative, I thought.
I went back and I rewatched that whole fight scene just because it had moves and angles that I hadn't really seen before. That I just wasn't, I just needed to see again, because I wasn't used to that kind of, that we've seen the certain things like when somebody punches, you got some zoom in thing. So it looks like, they're standing far away, but it looks like it's really close. There's certain moves that people do, but there are a few moves here that were new to me that I thought were really interesting. So I did rewatch it. I totally agree with you. And it was great, by the way, to see Rachel Ancherel, friend of the show, back in action as Commander Non. So good to see her, presumably just for this episode, maybe for the duration of the rest of the season. Don't know, but it was great to have her back. I was very happy with that.
Yeah, except that she was extremely tough on Book. I'm like, seriously? Book hasn't earned his way up into certain settings. Like, it reminded me of the Next Generation episode we just watched. But Geordi says, "Oh, I'm going to invite who was the guest star, Murdoch." Yeah, he says, "Barkley, I want to invite you to our senior staff meetings, for the briefings." And then Wesley was there, and I'm like, "Well, this isn't exactly that exclusive."
And Barkley's like, "Wow, thank you. Yeah. I'll be there." And he shows up, and there's a high schooler there.
Yeah,
there's somebody's dog is pooping in the corner, and he's like, "This isn't
This is not an exclusive
Yes.
meeting. So it felt like that to me when I was watching Non tell Book. I'm like, Book saved the whole planet like several times by now. This is season 5.
Yeah.
He's put in his work. He's earned his stripes to kind of be in on the know, you know?
Yeah, right.
So I did think that was a little funny.
You should have seen what he's been doing the last couple seasons while you were out gallivanting around your own home planet.
Exactly.
Maybe you should be watching. He's actually
Get
been a
debriefed
vital
on that.
member of this crew.
Yeah, yeah. Even though he doesn't have an official ranking, he's had a very integral part, and he's been necessary for solving a lot of the problems that they've had, including his abilities with his, Keijon kind of psychic
That was very cool.
abilities, which they actually took advantage of in this episode. So yeah, I'm thinking, no, to the level of which he was like, it's like that bouncer that says you can't come in the club. You're like, bro, I'm standing right here.
Especially because like he's been doing that obviously fake British accent for so long. Like, give him a little respect. That's a lot of work.
Give him a break.
It's not easy to sound that dignified and amazing. No, obviously that is the real thing. And we do love Book and his 2 cats playing one, which is always fun. Actually, we haven't seen Grudge in a while. So
yeah,
there were a few things, I like that Rayner talked about his kinfolk on Kelleran. I guess he is a Kelleran. That was cool. As we just mentioned, I thought it was amazingly cool when Book read the Betazoid clue. That was a very good connection. Again, giving a character something to do in the storyline that completely works with the character. They're finding really good uses for characters that are not official members of the crew. If they're an official member of the crew, it's easy. Oh, the engineer does this, the science officer does that. So they found some very good, creative, and valid ways to incorporate him in the story. And I thought it was perfect. And Culber's jacket, by the way, come on.
Yeah, I want me one of them jackets, man. Straight up.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got some of the best wardrobe in this show as well. Him and Book got some great show outfits.
Well, he does look amazing, but I always wonder, I'm like, is it just because he's super ripped and looks amazing? Like wardrobe people sometimes are like, this guy's gonna make my thing look real good. You know what I mean? Like,
you're
great.
a mannequin for some good, craftsmanship. So he's definitely modeling some of that stuff. Like if they're gonna release that jacket, I would totally buy that jacket. I don't know what color it is, like an icy white jacket, but with the high collar and I would totally rock that jacket like on an everyday type deal. Like just as a regular thing, not like a convention piece. But yeah, I also liked, going back to Reno, going through the list of things that she had done, being a smuggler and a bartender and all of these other things. And my favorite line probably was when she says, "Oh yeah, I padded my resume." So I was thinking, that's perfect. We never get to hear that. And finally, Star Trek brought that one, the old "I padded my resume" line. I love that.
That's Reno in a nutshell right there. Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah.
So
they mentioned the Dominion War. The Dominion War. I know there was a NAM for the Dominion War. So
yeah.
Shout out, another extra shout out to DS9.
As soon as they mentioned that, we all leaned in like, what else are they going to say? Are they going to mention Sisko or are they going to talk about Weyoun, Damar? What?
Yes.
So we only have a couple minutes left here, Cirroc. So how about we talk about the home run of the episode? What do you think? Who gets the home run of today's episode?
The home run of this episode. Yeah, this was like a really good ensemble piece. So it's hard for me to point out one particular performance that stood out more than others. because I felt like everybody had a moment to shine in this episode. Like certain moments here and there. Rayner, I thought, did great in the times that he had to be the grumpy curmudgeon guy that he was, and but I'm actually going to give it to the aforementioned Eve Harlow. And I feel like this was carried a lot with her performance. A lot of moments there. I love, for example, when the question was asked, what's worse than death? And she says, this conversation, for starters.
Yeah.
It was just like beautifully written and excellently executed. So, yeah, I'm going to have to give this one to Eve Harlow.
That's a great one. There was also something I noticed that she did was she was shivering in sickbay. She was kind of doing this thing. I was like, God, that's got to be hard to do for like a whole day's worth of scenes. But I was wondering if that was her decision or if that was a directorial decision. Don't know, but she did it well and it added to the performance. I'm going to give it to Eve and Elias just because their bond is so great. It works together. The story does not work unless we believe their bond,
Yeah.
And that bond is written out very well by the writers, but especially performed by the actors. And the better we are convinced of that bond, the more we feel, when things happen to that bond. And so they nailed it. Home run of the episode for me.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, and also an infield home run for the VFX team that created that amazing dreadnought ship. Wow. That was too cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, we're going to give a shout out to our friends, Homer Frizzell, Dr. Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, TJ Jackson-Bey, the Party Gorn, Titus Mohler, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Tierney C. Dieckmann, Anil O. Polat, Joe Balsarotti, Mike Goo, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, My Live from Tokyo, The Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allyson Leach-Heid, Julie Manisfee, Greg K. Wickstrom, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Tim Baum, a.k.a. Grandpa One, Chris Sternett, Johanna Yunker, Amiram Misne, Nora Vega, Ed Jarrett, Steve Case, a.k.a. Joe Bugbuster, and of course, Jason Okun. All right, everybody, that's it for us. Please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. If you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate that. Thank you all very much for hanging out with us. For Cirroc Lofton, myself, Melissa Longo, and Aaron Eisenberg. Thank you all for hanging out. We will see you next time. And until then, God, 3 episodes left.
Yeah.
Can't believe it.
And we got a Michael Chiklis reference for
I know
that
I thought
Aaron
of
Eisenberg.
Aaron. That was for you, Aaron. That was amazing.
You did it for him.
And I know you were poking in there. You're like, oh, Michael Chiklis, eh? I'm like, this guy gets it. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. Always remember the 7th rule.